Seltzer Kings
podcasts.
LinkedIn is pretty amazing at helping you grow your small business. We cannot stop your new clients from emailing you at 3 a.m. We can help you sell, market, and hire in one place. We cannot help you be in 3 places at once. And while we can't help you organize your calendar, LinkedIn can help you land more clients so you have a calendar to organize. Grow your small business on LinkedIn. Learn more at linkedin.com/smallbusiness.
The Seltzer Kings Podcast Network interrupts your regularly scheduled programming to bring you the following special presentation. Oh, don't be so glum, Gavin. You guys still have, the Falklands. Ass.
The following podcast contains...
Only I didn't say fudge.
And for gosh sake, watch your language.
Watch your profanity.
Right, I'm sorry.
explicit language.
Hello and welcome to the podcast that asks a simple question. When the biggest part of your celebration was a new quarter, what the hell were you thinking? I'm your host, Dave Bledsoe, and this is a special presentation, the Spirit of 76 edition of the show. We talk about the last time America had a big birthday party, so stay tuned. The What the Hell Are You Thinking podcast is brought to you by Numismatics, because coins are cooler than you think. Everyone has a jar at home where they dump their pocket change, and what if we told you those coins might be worth something? Is it possible, unless the side of the quarters, nickels, and dimes in your junk drawer, a penny worth over $2 million waits to be discovered? Yes, but it isn't very likely. But it is possible. The only way to know is with numismatics, the collection and studying of coins. It is as boring as it sounds, certainly. But these days, as cash money slowly disappears and the penny has gone out of production, you might as well find the time to dig up the swear jar and sort through for hidden treasure. Numismatics, don't dump them in Coinstar until you've checked with a numismatist.
ABC News goes to the Great American Birthday Party. From the American Broadcasting Company's Bicentennial Center in New York City, Harry Reisner.
Good morning. We're here, and we'll be here throughout the day in this red, white, and blue studio to take a look at what the second oldest major continuing nation in the world is doing to celebrate the 200th anniversary of its independence.
1976 was one of the most important moments in the life of Generation X. A summer that would redefine genres and lift up lives in a fashion that remains as impactful today as it did the day it happened. I'm, of course, speaking of the debut of The Muppet Show.
It's The Muppet Show with our very special guest star, Mr. Steve Martin.
It's time to play the music. It's time to light the light. It's time to meet the Muppets on The Muppet Show tonight.
Sure, other stuff happened that year, and that was okay, I guess. But to a 7-year-old tubby kid in Southeast Tennessee, The Muppet Show was the pinnacle of 1976. Though I guess the quarters were a close second. The rest of the nation, of course, engrossed in the celebration of the United States of America's founding 200 years previously on July 2nd, 1776.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong.
You thought that was on July 4th? No. July 2nd was the day when everybody got together and was like, okay, we're going to declare independence. It was July 4th when they all took a vote on a draft proposal, which was written up, and that draft proposal would only be signed by John Hancock and Charles Thompson, and you've never even heard of Charles Thompson until just now. That draft was sent to the printers, and when it came back on July 19th, 1776, fully written out on parchment for the delegates to sign, that's when the Declaration of Independence would be officially signed. And even then, it wasn't official until it was signed by all 56 delegates, which did not happen until August 2nd.
Wait, what?
Yeah, July 4th was just the day the Continental Congress agreed that we should declare independence. The public didn't find out about it until July 6th, and only then in Philadelphia, where a draft was published in the papers, and from there it would take months for the Declaration to reach all corners of the new nation, where many people were quite upset by it. So upset that a bunch of them took up arms against this rogue group of rich landowning upstarts. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. What I meant to say is for 250 years now, we've been celebrating the wrong day, because technically, Independence Day is August 2nd.
So they lied to us.
Again. Also, after the Revolutionary War, the scars of that revolution were still tender, so it wasn't a day that was terribly much celebrated. That changed somewhat later to the modernist celebration of the 4th, and that began on the 50th anniversary when Jefferson and Adams died on the same day, and it took until 1870 for the 4th to become the officially recognized holiday. So this week, let's celebrate our 250th by talking about our 200th birthday and the strange and cool shit that we did to get our party on.
Happy birthday, America.
100 years previously, in July of 1876.
Okay, going on a tangent there.
Not really. This is going to be too short of an episode for a tangent. But, I still got formulas to follow. It was our 100th birthday, and it was the International Exhibition of Arts and Manufacture of Products of the Soil and Mine, and it was held in Philadelphia from May through November of that year. Into this first World's Fair in America, which World's Fair were a thing back then, the whole centennial kind of got folded into the official celebration of the fair and the birthday and all that other shit. However, a lot of the nation was not exactly in a celebratory mood. The greatest depression in American history until the Great Depression was kicked off by the Panic of 1873, and its impacts were still very much lingering over the country. Reconstruction was falling apart as violence blossomed in response to black people being treated like human beings, and the citizens of the country learned that General Custer had learned why the ground was so white at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, because the Indians kept coming and coming.
Oh, that's nasty.
Still, there were the traditional fireworks around the country. A lot of time capsules were buried to be opened 100 years later, and a new state, Colorado, would soon enter the Union. Almost as soon as the centennial was over, preparations began for the Bicentennial. Okay, slight exaggerations there, but even so, it was a decade before, on July 4th in 1966, the Congress impaneled the American Revolution Bicentennial Commission on July 4th. No one's quite sure why Congress did this, because the commission did absolutely nothing about argue about what kind of celebration would take place without ever reaching a conclusion. And it was formally disbanded in 1973 and replaced with the American Revolution Bicentennial Administration, which decided a whole bunch of local celebrations was better than one big national celebration and basically told America to
figure it out yourselves.
It should be noted that with things in the mid-1970s were not exactly going great either. America had ignominiously scampered out of Vietnam. We'd had a president resign steps ahead of impeachment and conviction. We were experiencing crushing inflation, enduring a crippling gasoline crisis, and disco music was dominating at the top of the charts.
I don't know how much more of this I can take.
In many ways, the national mood of 1976 was not a whole lot better than 1876 or 2026, if you want to be honest. Just something about our birthdays that kind of fucking sucks. Still, as the date grew near, enthusiasm began to grow. It began, like all good celebrations should, with a spiffy new logo. Bruce Blackburn, the guy who created NASA's round, swoopy worm logo, the one where all the letters are weird and the A's don't have a crossbar, well, he was commissioned to make a bicentennial logo, and he thought, what if I made it swoopy? And he created a rounded edge, white 5-point star instead of a stylized star of red, white, and blue. It was encircled by the inscription American Revolution Bicentennial 1776 to 1976. And that logo was everywhere. It was on posters, prints, t-shirts, stamps on the side of NASA's assembly building where they were working on this new space shuttle thingy. Check out your older relatives. They probably have a faded Star of 76 tattoo on their ass. Once we had a logo, the next thing we needed was, something small but ubiquitous. Something that everyone had, but no one really thought about. Something when people saw it, they would know it was a keepsake or worth about the cost of a pack of cigarettes, whichever you felt like you needed at the time. I'm, of course, talking about the...
I will start you off with this bicentennial quarter.
I mean, it wasn't just the quarter. There was the $1 and a 50-cent piece minted for the celebration. All of the coins kept the usual dead president on the front and only modified the date to read 1776 to 1976. It was the back of the coins that featured the big change. In 1973, the U.S. Mint sponsored a contest in which any American could technically enter a design for the coin and be chosen to be stamped on the coin. Now, you might imagine that a contest like this would draw a certain whimsical element, so the Mint insisted that all entries be carved onto a plaster cast, which probably cut down on the dick quarter submissions, but Americans being Americans, I'd be willing to bet there were at least a couple. The Bicentennial dollar featured the Liberty Bell and a full moon for some reason. The 50-cent piece featured Philadelphia's Independence Hall, but it was the quarter that would become the best-known commemorative coins with a Revolutionary War drummer and a tricorn hat, and they became synonymous for the Bicentennial coins. As a 7-year-old, the quarter was about the largest denomination I ever carried, in case I wanted a pack of smokes. So when my grandfather would slip one of them in my hand with the admonition, "Don't tell your parents," I'd flip it over excited to see if it were a Liberty quarter or just a boring old quarter, and my grandfather, being a grandfather, made sure it was never a boring old quarter. If I were a grandparent,
Horrifying.
I'd need to slip my kid a $1.47 today, and you can't buy a pack of smokes with that, not even in Georgia. While the government was mucking around with the coinage, the rest of the country was thinking bigger, and nothing was bigger than what the Big Apple had in mind, because it decided it was going to be inviting sailors from all around the world globe to come to the city and get laid.
He's a sailor. He's in New York. We get this guy laid, we won't have any trouble.
And since they were here getting laid anyway, maybe they could sail their ships around the city when they weren't balls deep in disco poon. Operation Sail, a parade of tall ships, was not original to 1976. The first one took place back in 1964. The ostensible purpose was to promote goodwill among nations by bringing said nation's iconic sailing ships into your port, having their sailors drink all your booze, fuck all your women, and not a few of your men. Sail 76 featured 16 tall ships from Argentina through the Soviet Union, all arriving in New York City for the 4th of July. 6 million people turned out to view them sailing in the harbor and up the Hudson River. They were joined by over 100 other vessels, including warships from around the world. Iconic images of Sail 76 are some of the most memorable things of the Bicentennial, and one of the very few things I personally remember seeing aside from the quarter. As an aside, an even larger flotilla of ships will repeat the performance here in New York City this year, and they will be blessedly free from our current president being anywhere near them. Queen Elizabeth came to visit for our celebration as a way of showing there were no hard feelings about the whole rebellion against their lawful years 200 years back, and of course thank us for saving their bacon from being conquered by the Nazis. In Washington, D.C., there was a big parade where President Ford attended, but didn't hog all the attention. In fact, the man in black himself was the master of ceremonies that year.
He's closer now. The hard case. The dark man. He's coming. He's closer now. The dark man.
No. I meant Johnny Cash, not Randall Flagg from the stand. Though, honestly, Randall Flagg, make a fucking great Grand Marshal for the 2026 parade now that I think of it. Also in 1976, there were 0 tanks, armored personnel characters rolling, or anything like that rolling down the street. And any armed services who did march in the parade wore their dress uniforms, actually marched, or they were cosplaying as Minutemen. If there were no Minutemen cosplayers near you, that's okay, because your fire hydrants had you covered. The Bicentennial Memory Project explains, quote, "It's the spring of 1976, and someone on your block, a grown adult, is on the knees in front of a fire hydrant with a paintbrush and a very specific vision of Betsy Ross. Maybe it was the JCs, maybe it was the Cub Scouts, maybe it was your weird uncle who took it upon himself. But all over America that year, ordinary people decided that the most patriotic thing they could do for the country's 200th birthday was paint the Johnny Pump on the corner to look like a Revolutionary War soldier or Uncle Sam or a Minuteman. There were no national committees. There was no committee. The American Revolution Bicentennial Administration in Washington was busy approving wagon trains and tall ships and commemorative coins. The fire hydrants were not their idea. The fire hydrants were everybody else's idea all at once, in thousands of towns at the same time, and that's somehow the most American thing about the whole story. It really was everywhere, unquote. Even my podunk town boasted patriotic fire plugs. And this was all before the internet, so it wasn't like people were doing it because they saw it on TikTok. It was just one of those weird organic things that went viral without a clear method of transmission, like Skylab protection hats or jokes about Richard Gere and a gerbil. See episode 332 for an explanation of that.
That's a plug.
There was also, for reasons not adequately explored, a Bicentennial wagon train. only it was running in reverse and they had Winnebagos. From kingofprussiahistory.org, quote, the Bicentennial's Commission of Pennsylvania, which organized the event, described it as a replay of history in reverse. A train of covered wagons, one from each state, is crossing the country from west to east, adhering as closely as possible to the original pioneer trails and wagon routes. They provided an authentic Conestoga wagon or prairie schooner for each state, as well as a Pennsylvania Conestoga and a chuck wagon to accompany each of the 5 main caravans, unquote. I would like to note here that I did not make a Donner Party joke, except, of course, for this reference to the Donner Party. People were also encouraged to join the trek in their own wagons. Started in Blaine, Washington in June of 75, 60 official historically accurate reproductions of prairie schooners and Conestogas drawn by horse and oxen began moving west, sticking as closely as possible to the routes the settlers used. Along the way, they were periodically joined by groups who would travel along for a while before wisely remembering that we have airplanes now and returning home. The core group of wagoneers slept in a small fleet of Winnebago RVs that followed along behind the wagon trains. The trains would stop at specific locations, put on a little show for the town folk, demonstrating how the settlers lived, and then move on. And all 5 wagon trains eventually converged on July 4th, 1976 at Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, because, sure, sounds good, where they were addressed by President Ford, who said that our American adventure was just beginning. What all this had to do with July 4th is not clear, since the peak era of wagon trains started in the 1840s and was basically over in 1869 when the Transcontinental Railroad was completed. Also, it should be noted that no one asked the Native Americans to recreate any of their original roles in the wagon train experience. Of course, every town in America had a fucking parade, big or little. There were people lining up for July 4th, 1976 for a parade. My little town had the biggest parade in its history. I mean, we had 5, count them, 5 towed floats. I mean, they were floats in the fact that they were flatbed trailers behind a pickup truck, all driven by a guy named Vern, that were decked out with red, white, and blue streamers. The high school marching band tooted out various patriotic melodies, and a vintage fire truck. I mean, it was vintage in the fact that it was very old, but it was also the only fire truck the town had Santa Claus on it, because sure, why the fuck not? Oh, they said it was Uncle Sam, but it was the same fucking outfit that Santa wore for the Christmas parade. They just put a construction paper Uncle Sam hat on top of him instead of a red stocking cap. And he was tossing out leftover Christmas candy. I was 7, and even I knew that fucking Uncle Santa was not the same as Uncle Sam. Were there fireworks?
Sure. Why not?
I mean, fireworks on the 4th go back to the beginning when John Adams told Abigail in a letter noting July 2nd as the day the country ought to be celebrating, and he stated, quote, "This day ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illumination, from one end of the continent to the other, from this time forward forevermore," unquote. And in truth, fireworks predated this because Americans have always loved to blow shit up.
Celebrate the independence of your nation by blowing up a small part of it.
But it was New York City again that said, fuck it, if we're going to do this, let's fucking do it. And Macy's stepped up and said, we got this shit. And they put on a goddamn show. I mean, they'd first shot a shell in 1958 celebrating the 100th anniversary of the store, but in 1976, they recognized they could corner the 4th the way they had cornered Thanksgiving and put on a massive East River fireworks show to celebrate the Bicentennial. And the tradition continues to this very day, when Macy's plans to blow the roof off all 3 sides of Manhattan for its 50th anniversary show. Of course, my tiny hometown in Etowah, Tennessee, was a little less spectacular, but they made an effort. I mean, usually the 4th of July fireworks was just Earl Pickett, the owner of the Black Cat fireworks stand outside the Sidney Libbets on Highway 411. But for the 200th birthday, Etowah went out and brought Earl and Earl Jr. in, who shot off hundreds of
Black Cats? No Roman candles or screaming mimes? Ladyfingers, buzz buttles, snicker bombs, church burners, finger blasters, gut busters, zippity doodahs, or crap flappers? Whistling bungholes? No spleen splitters, whisker biscuits, honky lighters, hoosker do's, hoosker don'ts, cherry bombs, nipsy daisers, with or without the scooter stick, or one single whistling kitty chaser?
And of course, there was merch. Because nothing says America more than tacky shit with a Bicentennial star slapped on it and sold everywhere. The brands just tossed shit out for free. From Time magazine in 1976, quote, "Some examples of thoroughly commercial promotions, the Rich Products Corporation, maker of Coffee Rich, offered a Bicentennial kit. It included an actual copy of the Declaration of Independence. And an ad headlined Coffee Rich started a revolution in a good taste. Decon Insecticide offered 6 free flag decals or for $2 a Bicentennial t-shirt. Its ad concludes, so get a little American history free from Decon, the people who help free America from bugs. Nabisco offered grocers a cardboard kit that unfolds to a display stand for Nabisco items, stamped 1776 Bicentennial, 1776. The kit is called, appropriately enough, Profit Builder Number 1W. Baskin-Robbins sells red, white, and blueberry ice cream cones. A Boston massage parlor, yes, they mean that kind of massage parlor, offers a Bicentennial special, the regular service, for a 10% discount. I'm not editorializing. This was actually in the Time article. And Toy Tex Novelty Company provides Bicentennial litter bags with Betsy Ross's flag stamped on them. Many Bicentennial promotions are having early success. Anything under $5 sells like crazy, says Jamie Goodchild, proprietor of the Heritage Shop in Boston's historic Faneuil Hall. He stocks inexpensive antique flask, walking sticks, fife and drum records, along with quality pewter, all over the Bicentennial schlock, unquote.
God bless America.
The nation has changed a lot in the 50 years since the adorably schlocky celebration of 1976. The Bicentennial was a real celebration of history and a chance to sell cheap crap. Things at the time were difficult and a lot of people were worried about the path the country was on, but for one glorious summer, everyone just seemed to say, fuck it, let's have some fun with it. Everything was draped in red, white, and blue, and you couldn't turn a corner without running into a brass band, busting out a patriotic barn burner. People just seemed to embrace the idea that America was good, that even with our problems and our failures, that we stood for an idea worth celebrating. We all still thought the Founding Fathers were saints, and the dream of one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, was something worth celebrating. 50 years later, I'm not sure we think that anymore. Now, look, I've never been a booyah, rally around the flag, America, love it or leave it person. I'm actually aware of the flaws, failures, and the fuckery that are part and parcel of our nation's story. From the foundation by a group of wealthy slave owners who hated paying their taxes, through the egregious sins of slavery, genocide, the oppression of the working class to benefit the oligarchical class of businessmen, through our wars for bad causes and a few good, into the vicious backlash against granting all citizens, regardless of color of their skin or their gender, equal protection under the law, through our blundering imperialism, the post-Cold War era, all the way to whatever the fuck is going on today, America has never lived up to our marketing. But there's something to be said for that aspiration to become the thing that we claim to be. The slow tilt towards justice that seems to lurch forward one step and fumble 3 steps back, only to just pick ourselves up and keep plodding forward again. That in our ambition to live up to the ideals that we claim to embody, that we come a little closer to making those ideals a reality. When I was in the military, one of my duties was to raise and lower the flag on base every day. It was just rote repetition. Reveille plays, you put it up. National anthem plays, you take it down. Every day, day in, day out for 10 years. It was something that a guy like me, who is, I have to be honest, a bit of an iconoclast, ought to have hated. But honestly, I never did. On the last day of duty, I made sure that I got to take the flag down one last time. And I remember getting a little misty-eyed because I felt I'd given my blood, sweat, and tears to a cause worth something. And even if that something was just a hope that someday the words would mean more than a slogan on a cheap t-shirt made in an Asian sweatshop, I was certain that eventually we would get there. On this, the 250th anniversary of the day, kind of around the day that those slave owners said fuck you to a king over the ocean, I'm not at all certain there'll be a tricentennial for this country. I've watched the slow steps of progress be clawed back and the nation fawn over a drooling tyrant who would be a mortal threat to those ideals in perpetuity if he weren't a senile dipshit and his closest followers greedy little vermin who are feasted off the turds he drops to them. And I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that the fever of our modern madness breaks and we wake soon to pick up the long march towards a singular nation out of many people, that liberty and justice for all remain even in its threadbare meaning, and that a nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure.
This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
And we're live on match day as Doug reaches for a buffalo wing. He's got it! Oh, and he's gone for a can of Pepsi too! What a finish! There's no doubt about it. It just tastes better. Match days deserve Pepsi.
That is it for this very special episode, this special presentation. We will be putting out a regular episode on schedule, so no worries. We got more Charlie coming. In the meantime, I want all of you to go out there and enjoy your 4th. See some fireworks, check out the tall ships, have a cookout. Hey, if you happen to come across a Bicentennial quarter, slip that shit to a kid. Tell them not to tell the parents. I mean, they won't be impressed or anything. They'll probably just put it in the change jar, but hey, it's a fucking tradition.
What the Hell Were You Thinking stars Dave Bledsoe and features Gavin St. James and several fictional minions. The show is produced by Kimberly Steele and a part of the Seltzer Kings podcast network. You can find more information on the show on their website, whatthehellpodcast.com, or on Facebook as What the Hell Podcast. Thanks for listening.
I have no ending for this, so I take a small bow.
Seltzer Kings
Podcasts.